rise from the sands like frozen waves in time, towering silent and unshaken by thousands of years. The Great Pyramids of Egypt. Everyone's seen them. In photos, in history books, in documentaries narrated by confident voices claiming they already know the full story. But what if they don't? What if everything we've been taught about the pyramids, about who built them, when they were built, and perhaps most disturbingly, why they were built, isn't just incomplete, but completely wrong? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The official story doesn't add up. We're told they were tombs, built by brute force and primitive tools, that tens of thousands of laborers somehow carved, transported, and stacked over 2 million massive stones, some weighing more than 50 tons each, using nothing but ropes, wooden sleds, and raw determination. We're expected to believe they did all this with no advanced mathematics, no wheels, no iron tools, and somehow achieved a structure so precise that it aligns with the true north more accurately than any modern building in history. But you know what's strange? No pharaoh's body has ever been found in the Great Pyramid. No hieroglyphs line its inner chambers, no inscriptions claiming credit, no clear signs of religious funerary practices, just empty halls, mysterious shafts, and a silence that speaks volumes. And yet somehow it still stands. Why? What secrets does it hold? Why are there similar pyramids scattered across distant lands, built by cultures that supposedly never spoke to one another? And why is there an eerie consistency in their alignment, as if they were all following the same blueprint? Maybe the story we've been told isn't the story that was meant to be told, because the deeper you look into the Great Pyramids, the more you start to wonder, were they monuments to the dead, or messages for the future? Were they built by kings, or by something older, wiser, and forgotten? This is the lost history of the Great Pyramids. History textbooks will tell you a simple story, that around 4,500 years ago, the Great Pyramid of Giza was constructed as a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu, a grand monument to honor a divine king in his journey to the afterlife. They say it took about 20 years to build, that it was made possible by a massive workforce of skilled laborers, not slaves as once believed, who carefully carved and transported over 2.3 million limestone blocks from nearby quarries, each block weighing between 2 to 15 tons. We're told they used copper chisels to carve these stones, wooden sleds to drag them, ramps made of mud brick to lift them into place. That's the story, and it's neat, it's easy to digest. But when you stop to really think about it, it doesn't make sense. Let's start with the scale. To finish the pyramid in 20 years, workers would have needed to cut, shape, transport, and position one block every 2 minutes, working 24/7 for 2 decades straight, without error, without delay, without modern machinery. Think about that. Even today, with advanced tools, GPS systems, and massive cranes, we'd struggle to replicate such precision. Yet we're supposed to believe a Bronze Age civilization managed it with nothing but primitive hand tools and muscle. And then there's the alignment. The Great Pyramid is aligned almost perfectly to true north, off by just 3/60ths of a degree. That's more accurate than the Royal Observatory in Greenwich. So the question is, how did ancient Egyptians with no telescopes or satellites achieve such astronomical accuracy? And why was that alignment so important to them? Let's talk about what's inside. Most pyramids built later in Egyptian history are covered in hieroglyphs, scenes of gods, pharaohs, prayers, stories of the afterlife. But the Great Pyramid, it's completely blank, silent, mute. There are no lavish decorations, no sarcophagus with a body, just narrow passageways, mysterious shafts that lead nowhere, or maybe somewhere, and chambers that seem more like machines than tombs. Even the so-called King's Chamber doesn't fit the narrative. There's no trace of a burial, and the massive granite box inside, it's too big to have been brought in after construction, meaning the pyramid was built around it. But why? Why go through such complexity just to house a tomb that doesn't seem to contain a king? The more you investigate, the more cracks begin to appear in the mainstream story, and slowly you start to wonder if the Great Pyramid wasn't a tomb at all. Sometimes the most powerful secrets aren't buried. They're right in front of us, hiding in plain sight, and the Great Pyramid is full of them. Let's start with the base. Each side of the pyramid's foundation measures almost exactly 230.4 meters, with a difference of less than 2 centimeters between them. Let that sink in. A structure built over 4,000 years ago without lasers or computers is more level than most modern buildings. Then there's the slope. Each side of the pyramid angles up at 51.5 degrees, forming a near-perfect golden triangle, a shape rooted in sacred geometry. Coincidence or intentional design meant to reflect something deeper, something universal? Here's where things get strange. When you multiply the pyramid's height by 43,200, you get the polar radius of the Earth, a number not officially calculated until modern times. Multiply the base perimeter by the same number, you get the Earth's equatorial circumference. These aren't close guesses, these are exact. So how did a supposed Bronze Age civilization know the dimensions of the planet? Inside, it gets even more baffling. The king's chamber is built entirely from red granite, hauled from quarries over 500 miles away, weighing 70 tons per block. Why go to such lengths? Why not use the abundant local limestone? And here's the kicker. That granite resonates. When struck, it produces deep, humming frequencies, almost like a tuning fork. Researchers who've spent time inside the king's chamber have described strange sensations. Some felt vibrations in their chest. Others felt lightheaded or euphoric. One theory suggests the chamber was designed to amplify sound, to create a harmonic resonance that could alter consciousness. Not a tomb, but an initiation chamber, or a machine. Even the narrow shafts that rise through the pyramid don't make sense from a tomb builder's perspective. They don't lead to the outside. They don't ventilate anything, but they do point directly to specific stars: Orion's belt, Sirius, and Thuban, the North Star of ancient times, almost as if the pyramid was trying to tell us something or point us somewhere. With all of this, you begin to realize the Great Pyramid wasn't just built with precision. It was designed with purpose, a purpose we've either forgotten or were never meant to understand. Here's where the story gets even stranger, because the Great Pyramid isn't alone. All over the world, from the jungles of Central America to the mountains of China, pyramids appear again and again. Different cultures, different eras, different materials, and yet the same shape. In Mexico, the ancient city of Teotihuacan holds a pyramid just as massive, aligned with the stars, just like Giza. In Cambodia, the Temple of Ko Ker mirrors the pyramid form with celestial precision. In China, near Xi'an, massive pyramid-like mounds rise from the earth, mostly unexcavated, shrouded in secrecy. Why? Why did so many ancient civilizations, separated by oceans and continents, choose the pyramid? Is it just a coincidence? The easiest way to stack stones high? Or is there something deeper going on? Something forgotten? Let's push this further. Many of these pyramids share specific alignments with the solstices, the equinoxes, and most curiously, Orion's belt. This isn't random. This is intention. But intention based on what? According to mainstream history, these civilizations had no contact. They didn't trade. They didn't share languages. They didn't swap blueprints. And yet, they left behind nearly identical monuments on opposite sides of the world. Some researchers have called this a case of convergent evolution, the idea that similar conditions led to similar designs. But others aren't so sure. They point to the myths, whispers of ancient beings descending from the sky, civilization bringers, knowledge givers. In Mesoamerican lore, they were the feathered serpents, Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan. In Egypt, they were gods with the heads of animals, Thoth, Osiris, Ra. Different names, same themes. Each culture tells of a time when humanity was taught or perhaps reminded of a higher knowledge, a shared memory or a suppressed truth. It's almost as if the pyramid was more than a structure. It was a symbol, a code, something timeless, meant to survive flood, fire, and forgetting. and maybe, just maybe, it was meant for us. This is the part where mainstream historians roll their eyes. But maybe that's exactly why we need to look here. Because when the official explanations fail, when the numbers don't add up, when the evidence doesn't fit the story, we have two choices: dismiss the anomalies, or dare to ask the forbidden questions. Some believe the pyramids are the last remnants of a lost civilization, a culture far older than Egypt, whose memory has been wiped by cataclysm and time. You've heard the name whispered in myths: Atlantis, a place of advanced knowledge where the Earth's secrets were once known, studied, and shared, until something happened. A flood, a war, a fall from grace. Plato wrote about it, so did ancient Sumerians, Hindus, and even Native American tribes, each in their own language, their own way. The common thread, a golden age that ended suddenly. And after the collapse, survivors scattered across the globe, bringing with them fragments of a forgotten science, fragments that became pyramids. Others go further. They propose that what we call gods, or angels, or sky beings may have been something else entirely. Not divine, not spiritual, but technological. The ancient astronaut theory, controversial, yes, but not easily dismissed when you realize how many ancient structures defy even today's engineering capabilities. Because what kind of civilization builds structures that can survive for 4,000 years, resist earthquakes, align with stars, encode the Earth's measurements, and, possibly, resonate with frequency? Not a primitive one, not one that's forgotten, but one that was buried under time, buried under denial, buried under a version of history carefully edited to fit the narrative of power. And that's what makes this philosophical, not just the question of how the pyramids were built, but why we've forgotten. Why do we so quickly shut down alternative thought? Why do we cling to tidy stories instead of embracing the vast, uncomfortable unknown? Maybe the real danger isn't that we'll never know the truth. It's that we once knew it and chose to forget. If we dare to set aside the idea that the Great Pyramid was just a glorified tomb, a new question emerges. Not how was it built, but why? Because nothing about this structure says tomb. There's no body, no treasures, no inscriptions celebrating a dead king. Only silence, stone, geometry, and intention. So what was it? Some researchers suggest it was an energy generator, a structure designed to interact with Earth's electromagnetic field. They point to the pyramid's location, right at the geographic center of the Earth's landmass. It's not just in Egypt. It's perfectly placed between the northern and southern hemispheres, between the continents east and west, almost like it was meant to be there, not for glory, but for function. Others believe the pyramid was built to amplify resonance, a chamber for sound, frequency, and vibration. The red granite in the king's chamber isn't just decorative, it's highly conductive. The pyramid's internal shafts and angles echo like musical instruments. Could it have been a tool for altering consciousness? A place where the initiated connected with something greater than themselves? And then there's the spiritual theory that the pyramid was never about death, but transformation. In ancient mystery schools, enlightenment wasn't just a concept, it was a process, a journey inward. Some believe the Great Pyramid was part of that path, a physical metaphor for inner awakening, a trial by silence, by darkness, a crucible where ego was stripped away and something deeper was revealed. Maybe it wasn't a tomb for the dead, but a temple for the living, a place where seekers were reborn, not into the afterlife, but into a new understanding of life itself. And here's something that often gets overlooked. Ancient texts, those preserved in whispers and fragments, refer to the pyramid not as a tomb, but as a house of energy, a beacon, a mirror of heaven. These aren't metaphors, they're clues. Clues left behind not just for the next generation, but for us. Because maybe the builders weren't just engineers. Maybe they were philosophers, trying to tell the future something we were bound to forget. You might be wondering, If there's so much evidence, so many questions, why haven't these ideas been accepted? Why do we still cling to the neat story of tombs and pharaohs? Maybe it's not just about facts. Maybe it's about control, because history isn't just a record of the past. It's a mirror for the present, and whoever controls that mirror controls what we see, what we believe, and what we become. For centuries, knowledge has been filtered, polished, censored, rewritten to serve the needs of those in power. Empires, religions, governments, they all have one thing in common: a fear of questions they can't answer, because questions lead to thinking, and thinking leads to awakening. So instead of saying, "We don't know how the pyramids were built," the narrative becomes, "We know exactly how, don't ask." Instead of wondering what these monuments truly mean, we're told to treat them like relics, to look but not see, to marvel but not understand. And when independent thinkers or alternative researchers challenge the status quo, they're not debated, they're dismissed, branded as fringe, pseudo-scientific, conspiratorial. But here's the irony: some of history's greatest truths started as heresies. Galileo, Da Vinci, Tesla, all doubted, all ridiculed, until time caught up with them. So what if the truth about the pyramids was never lost, just buried, not under sand, but under fear? Fear of what it would mean if ancient humans weren't primitive, if our ancestors knew more than we do now. Fear that the story of humanity isn't a slow climb from ignorance to knowledge, but a cycle of remembering and forgetting. And if that's true, then what else have we forgotten? So now, as you sit with all of this, the unanswered questions, the impossible math, the forgotten knowledge, and the whispers of something greater than stone and sweat, you begin to feel it, don't you? A quiet discomfort, a pull, like the pyramid itself is calling, not just to be seen, but to be understood. Because maybe the Great Pyramid was never just a monument. Maybe it was a message, not to honor the dead, but to awaken the living, a beacon for those willing to look deeper, to question the stories we're told, to remember what was buried, not all at once, but in pieces, in symbols, in stone. And maybe that's the true purpose of the pyramid, not to tell us what they knew, but to make us remember what we have forgotten, because the greatest secrets of the ancient world were never lost. They were hidden, right where no one would dare to look, inside ourselves. And if you've watched this far, then you're not just curious, you're searching, which means one thing: don't stop now. Watching this video and not watching the next one would be like unlocking the pyramid and refusing to walk inside. So if your mind is still racing, if your curiosity is burning, you need to watch this next video. What's hidden about Sumerian gods and Anunnaki history? Because the mystery doesn't end at the pyramids. In fact, that's where it really begins.